You have a dominant nostril.
You do have a dominant nostril.
I didn't know that until I met you.
Yeah.
All this time, I thought my nostrils were...
I think you knew it. You just didn't realize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was treating my nostrils equally, but now one is dominant and one is submissive. Can you imagine if you had Tourette's, but like you didn't say swear words, you just said random fruits and vegetables?
That would be
broccoli.
Really strange.
Carrots.
Squash.
Carrot, squash, rhubarb.
Rhubarb.
Why rhubarb?
What is the most offensive sounding fruit or vegetable? Kumquat.
I wouldn't say that's offensive. I'd say it's
Funny.
kind of intriguing. To be honest, I kind of liked it. I'm not going to lie.
Welcome to Whiskey Bits,
With Matt and Phil.
where we talk all things whiskey.
And all things comedy.
So Matt.
Yes, Phil. We didn't try to do this already and messed up the audio.
So Matt.
Yes.
How about some Colonel E.H. Taylor?
I would love some Colonel E.H.
Junior.
Taylor. Junior?
Yeah. He was a junior.
Oh. All right.
All right. So Bottle and Bond.
Which means, for those of those that are listening,
Yes.
100 proof. The government backs it.
The government backs it. 100 proof.
Why?
So actually, Colonel E.H. Taylor. Colonel E.H. Taylor.
He's not a real colonel, as we
Right.
talked about before.
As we talked about before, not a real colonel. Colonel E.H. Taylor. He owned the OFC, the Old Fashioned Copper Distillery in Kentucky. And so right around 1870, he opened up that distillery. And somewhere in that time frame, you were getting a lot of distillers, a lot of people making whiskey and selling whiskey that wasn't actually whiskey. Would be maybe a moonshine that they added tobacco to give it color and a little bit of flavoring.
Yes, I read about that.
Yeah. And so what
and also
Colonel
disgusting.
E.H. Taylor did, he got with some other distillers and said, hey, we should ask the government to step in here and make some rules so that we can keep our industry. You know what? Look at that.
Look at that. We're finishing it up.
Bottle kill. So he got together with a bunch of other distillers and said, guys, there's a problem. We've got some really good whiskey. They're not buying our stuff because they're buying everybody else's stuff.
They're buying the crap stuff, the tobacco.
Yeah, and so he said, let's see if we can get the government to step in. And so the Bottle and Bond Act of 1897. So the Bottle and Bond Act of 1897 stipulated a number of things. There were 7 pieces to the Bottle and Bond Act that were important. So
That's a lot of pieces.
there's a lot of pieces. So we'll talk about a couple
Why
of them.
didn't they do 8? Because it would have been like an even number.
First of all, these are great questions for the Civil War.
Great. Come on, guys. Come up with one more.
Just one more. So what some of the things it stipulates is the place where it is stored and aged has to be bonded by the government. So they had to come in and make sure that it was only their stuff in.
You can see that something popped into my head.
Absolutely.
You're like, oh,
I should keep talking, but wait for
because I'm thinking it reminds me of like, is it like bonded by the government? Reminds me of like, you are blessed by the priest. Is the government coming in and just like, oh, like what are they doing? Like, what does that mean to be bonded? Are they like chaining the?
So you've heard of
Put on these handcuffs.
Let's let you finish your thought.
It's going to go to a horrible place.
Okay.
If I finish what I was thinking.
So you've heard of a savings bond, right?
Yeah.
That's a savings account that's backed by the U.S. government, and you're guaranteed to get your money back if anything happens to that
Why?
money that's in there. That's
Why do they do that?
to protect the consumer.
What do I have to... Okay. I'm just going to trust you.
Okay, don't trust the government, but you can trust me.
Okay, I'll trust you.
So what they wanted to make sure that the consumer was getting what they were paying for,
Right.
What they were actually wanting. And E.H. Taylor and some of the other distillers wanted to make sure that their product was recognized as following all of the rules. So one of the things was
because they weren't making money because the people that were competing with them were like not actually making whiskey. They were making tobacco juice,
right,
which is disgusting.
And the reason they weren't making a lot of money was because people didn't trust the product.
Right.
So they weren't buying it because they thought it's all terrible.
Right. Everything is bad.
Everything is bad because these things are bad. Exactly. So the government said, all right, we'll come up with some rules, some ideas here. They worked with E.H. Taylor and some of these other guys to come up with the Bottled and Bond Act of 1897 that says that the whiskey or the spirit, it's actually any spirit. You can get vodka that's bottled in bond. You can get gin that's bottled in bond. The pieces that are important is that it has it goes into a barrel and it has contact with that barrel,
which is sometimes hard to do when something goes in something it may not have contact with. So it's a good thing they made that stipulation.
Well, if you think about it, the reason that that whiskey gets color is from the barrel, right?
But how can something go into something and not have contact with it? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, the thing is that if they don't control what it goes into, then they have no control over what comes out of wherever they put it into. Say it has to go into a wood barrel.
I have so many thoughts right now.
It has to go into a wood barrel.
Inappropriate for this podcast.
In a whiskey, it has to go into a barrel that the whiskey then comes in contact with the actual wood.
Right.
Versus gin and vodka, which can be covered.
Oh, so like you could have a coating on the inside
for gin and vodka.
Really? They have a coating on the inside?
There's a coating on the inside.
What is it? That's gross.
I don't know.
This is whiskey bits, not gin and vodka.
Yeah,
bits.
don't ask me.
Sorry, Ryan Reynolds. I love you, and you're really, you're a beast. And
please come on the podcast.
And when they ask me what my fitness goals are, I just say Ryan Reynolds. Yeah, I feel like that's a good fitness goal.
I say Daredevil.
Daredevil?
That's what I say when people ask me.
So you want to be blind? I can help you with that. I'll just poke you in the eyes.
I want to be blind, but like also really funny.
But also kick butt.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Daredevil's awesome. Uh-huh. So Colonel E.H. Taylor.
Yeah, so
was not blind.
Additionally, so essentially what the Bottled and Bond Act says is that we have to make sure that the stuff that's in the bottle is what it says it is. So there's rules about the labels, there's rules about the way that it's covered. It has to have the tape over the top of the top of the cork. That signifies
something in there in the end.
Exactly.
Spittoon inside the.
It has to say where it came from. Has to say who was the distiller, because it all has to come from the same season, same distiller, same distillery as well. And so on this bottle of E.H. Taylor, it tells you that it comes from Frankfort, Kentucky, DSP KY 113.
That's not a real place.
That's their code.
That's not a real place.
That's the code.
I don't believe that.
That's the code.
Frankfurt comes from Hot Dog, Kentucky.
No, that's Frankfurt. This is Frankfort.
Oh.
Different places. Frankfurter is German. We're not going to get into German. So yeah, so that's who E.H. Taylor was. So
canceled. Someone got canceled. Okay, go ahead. I don't care. Nobody cares.
So the other pieces to this has to come out. It has to be 100 proof.
100 proof, which means
no more, no less.
Alcohol.
Yes. Has to be bottled for 4 years in a government bonded warehouse.
Now that is interesting because that would change. So if I'm E.H. Taylor and I have my rick house where I store all my barrels, and I have a certain flavor that comes from the environment and the weather and blah 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 blah. But now I have to take my mash build and put it in a government place. It's probably not in the same state.
Oh no.
Are they in Kentucky still?
It's in your distillery. But you've just given the government the access to say we're going to protect this warehouse. The only stuff that comes in and out of here is government bonded whiskey.
Okay.
For the case of Buffalo Trace or OFC or George T. Stagg, whatever it was called between now and when it first came up, that's warehouse C.
What about A and B?
A and B store other stuff. Warehouse
But
C
the A and B
is the
might not be.
government bonded.
So is it the whole warehouse has to be bonded, or is it like, this half of the warehouse is for the government, the other half?
That's a great question. In this case, the whole warehouse is...
Whole warehouse.
Yeah.
So they might have 10 warehouses and 6 of them are bonded and the other ones are not. Okay.
Sure.
Because like the one we had last time, Buffalo Trace, that's not bonded and bond.
It's
Or is
not.
it? No.
Nope, it's not.
So yeah, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
But what does it taste like? So it's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
And it's great and all. But like, what does it taste like?
So
What are you getting when you sniff? Is this called a snifter?
this is called a snifter.
Really?
Yeah.
I said
yeah.
something intelligent?
You asked about the glasses. This is called a snifter.
A snifter.
The Glencairn glass is another name for it.
Glencairn?
It has Glencairn.
Because Glenn and his wife Karen were like, hey, let's make a glass.
Let's make a glass. Yeah, that's exactly what they said.
That's what happened?
It kind of, when you read the word Glencairn and you look at it, it definitely looks like it's probably from Scotland.
Okay. So
That's
it's
my
not,
guess.
it's one word.
It's one word.
It's not 2 names.
Correct. Correct. So it has a sort of a wider base. So it's a narrow base, gets a little bit wider, and then a fluted top to allow for...
My ex-girlfriend had
there.
a little bit of a wider base.
So good.
She didn't actually.
Let me hear what you smell.
What do I smell?
Yeah, what do you get?
All right.
What do you get on the
I have
nose?
to figure out my nostril, my dominant
your
nostril.
dominant nostril. Yep. So what do you get on your nose?
Okay,
there?
hold on. Let me think about it. It's really hard to say. Because, like, it's a very strong alcohol smell. For sure.
Yep. And we poured this out probably 3 minutes ago.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm getting a whole... Maybe a fruity note.
Okay. If you had to pick a fruit.
I'm probably way off, but... Cherry?
All right.
I'm probably way off.
Look, I mean, you're the one who's smelling it. So you can't be way off.
Hold on.
All right. Did you clear your sinuses there?
I did. Disgusting.
It's so gross. So gross.
It's like reverse ASMR. It's like, hey, ASMR helps you sleep. Reverse ASMR helps you
throw up in your mouth.
throw up in your mouth. Yeah, I don't know.
I can tell you the thing that people like the most in watching you smell this.
Raspberry?
I think raspberry's a really
Raspberry.
good one. I think cherry's really good.
Yeah? Well, you're making me feel like it wasn't good.
I think the worst part about it was the dead noise.
The dead noise?
Yeah. We just had dead silence.
Who cares? This is my podcast. This is our podcast.
All you're going to do is you're going to look at some guys.
They're sniffing there. What's like the people listening are like, what's happening? I don't understand. I hear a lot of smelling noises.
All they're doing is smelling.
Well, that's part of it.
So
And
then
why do you smell it first?
So I think one of the things is to try to get some of the flavors and some of the aromas that you're going to grab off of a bottle.
You
I
have
think
a dominant nostril.
you do have a dominant nostril.
I didn't know that until I met you.
Yeah.
All this time, I thought my nostrils were.
I think you knew
both
it.
the
You just
same.
didn't
I just
realize
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was treating my nostrils equally, but now one is dominant and one is submissive, and I treat them as such.
Do you,
I do.
so do you punch your right nostril
My right nostril gets punched
regularly?
straight in the nostril.
Right in the nostril.
The other one I'm very gentle with,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it listens.
Yeah. That's good.
It's also useless.
That's good.
Completely useless.
It is completely useless. So I get a bit of vanilla.
I was just gonna say vanilla, but I think it's because it's opening up a little bit.
I think it is opening up a little bit.
Yeah, vanilla. Ooh, and then how do you taste it?
So I like to. So I always kind of swirl it a little bit,
swirl.
just to kind of give it a little bit of oxygen.
Yeah, because
there.
that's doing a whole lot.
Well,
I'm sorry, I'm just calling out.
no, it's okay. Smell it after you spin it around a little bit.
Oh, sweeter.
You get a little bit more or
Apple.
something.
I got an apple.
Apple's
I
good.
got some apple there.
That's good. So I like to take a little sip.
Okay.
Okay. You'll get some on the front of the tongue.
Yeah, I remember the first time we tried stuff together. You
Yep.
taught me how to do it in the front of the tongue. It interesting sensation.
Yeah. A little bit of a burn. It's 100 proof, so it's a little bit higher than the last one we had. And of course, we just did a couple old fashions not too long ago. So
it's okay. I'm used to being burned.
It's good.
By my wide-hipped ex-girlfriend.
Thicker in the bottom.
A little thicker in the bottom area.
Yeah. So this will continue to open up as we sit here and talk.
So
you'll start to get some...
so will I, Phil.
Oh, I hope so. I really hope so. Tell me.
It's good. I really like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had this before. It is different than... I would have to try the Buffalo Trace next to it, but it is different. I feel like this one's sweeter.
Yeah. Could be.
That means you're wrong.
No, it
could be. Yeah. Sure. That might be the thing. Yeah, you're totally wrong.
Look, the beauty about whiskey is you drink it how you want to drink it. You taste what you taste. You enjoy what you enjoy.
It's so liberal.
No two palates are the same. I identify as a whiskey drinker.
As a whiskey drinker, I identify as someone who tastes cherry. It is good.
Mm-hmm.
What is also good is the fact that this is the only time I get to write jokes. Because I just don't want to during the day. No, and I feel like I need to start doing jokes about whiskey. But I don't even know where to start. Because I feel like... Okay, so let's get to the seriousness of comedy.
Let's get to the bits.
Add some intelligence.
We've done the whiskey. Let's get to the bits.
Let's get to the bit. So one of the things that I've been trying to figure out over the last however many years that I've been on and off doing this is what my persona is. And I've heard, I've read books, I've had private lessons, and some say it takes years. A lot of them actually say, it takes years to develop your persona. And I feel like I've been doing it enough to where I have a pretty good idea of what not so much like, I don't feel like I need to be somebody different. Like I need to make up some persona that's not me, because that's not what it is. It's more about what does the audience respond to best with in regards to you when you're on stage. So I've tried certain jokes that have not landed. And it's not that, I need to rework that joke. It's just that topic doesn't work for me. Like, I can't pull it off. Like, I did a joke recently at a show, and it could have been because I opened with it, but I thought it was funny. But it was about, like, my vasectomy, right? And, like, it just did not land. And maybe telling a story about your vasectomy isn't the first thing you should say when you go on a stage. But I had what I thought was a good bit, and it just didn't land. And so one of the things that, like, Madison, my wife, and I have been discussing is there's certain topics that I just can't pull off, and that's fine. And it's just not me. Like, I have a certain standard of things that I want to talk about and things that I don't want to talk about. And so, okay, so maybe overly, even stuff that's not so overtly sexual, but, like, I just don't do well with that. So this persona of who I am and what I'm doing, I'm like, okay, well, what is it that people like about me? What is it that people typically respond to, which is usually the physical comedy stuff or facial expressions. But then it's like, what am I interested in? And so I think part of it, persona, is, yes, it's a big part of what the audience responds to, but I think it's also a big part of what you want it to be. Like, I don't think it has to be, well, it's just whatever people tell you are, because that's not a good message. Like, I'm going to be who I am, and I feel like the people that are going to be my audience are going to be naturally attracted to who I already am versus me trying to, like, fit into what they want me to be to some degree, right?
There's no doubt that people are going to be attracted to who you really are, rather than a persona that you're trying to put on for them.
Right, because, like, the whole idea of persona is just, like, there's some comics, Gilbert Gottfried, apparently, I've heard it was an act, and apparently he wasn't that way in real life, whatever that is. but that was his persona. Now, I don't know if that means he was doing a voice forever for everything he did in Aladdin and I can't really believe that, but maybe. Mm-hmm. But then there's like the persona of like Seinfeld. You think of, okay, you know exactly who and what he's about. Gaffigan, he's going to talk about food. Brian Regan, he's quote unquote dumb, but dumb. Like he's not really that dumb in real life, I'm sure. And so,
but that fits him.
But it fits his
when you look
style,
at him and you kind of watch his mannerisms and things like that, you get the idea that this guy might be a little thick-skulled.
Right. So like I think it's like, and I guess maybe today is not even necessarily about let's write a joke, but I think it's like I've really been trying to figure out what my persona is. And the whiskey stuff, I'm like, this is such a big, I mean, it's a big part of what we're doing. Like the whole reason of doing this podcast is because you and I would get together. You brought in whiskey and you're like, hey, let's hang out. Let's just chill. And like, hey, I'll teach you about whiskey. Cool. And then let's work on my set for when I did the Dry Bar comedy special. We were gearing up for that. So it just kind of naturally happened. But now it's become like, I really am into it. Like it's become a big part of like my interests, like a hobby. And so I feel like, I don't know how to make whiskey funny, but I feel like we need to do a whiskey, like a big chunk of my stuff. Like Tim Allen was the tool man, the man, you know. Yeah. Like I feel like my thing is like I like that element, but I can't replicate that. I don't want to replicate that, but I feel like the whiskey thing could be something. And I don't want to be what's his face, Ron White, that had the drink on the stage. I don't need to be that. He was part of the blue collar comedy tour that always had a drink. That's not what I'm looking for. But like, there's something about, you look at me, you're like, this guy isn't a connoisseur of anything. Like, I'm the young, like, so far with my persona, what I have is I'm the young, goofy dad who, you know, I'm not trying to relive my youth, but I'm still kind of in that. I feel like I'm a goofball, blah, 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 blah. Whatever. Like, but then you put in the whiskey, that's a little, like, old man-ish. So, I don't know. I feel like there's something that is going to be a big part of my comedy that is going to have to do with this, whatever this is. I don't know. I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to find. It's tough to find funny stuff about all of your hobbies.
I wish I was still making pickles.
See,
I used to have a pickle company. I mean, that in itself is a funny thing to say.
There you go.
I used to make pickles, and these barrels actually here were a part of our pickle.
Get out of
We
town.
would go to trade shows, and this was just part of our set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then this I got for this specifically.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
You know what? You could probably fit a really nice pickle in that bunghole.
And I have.
I think what's interesting about comedy and a persona is that you don't have to give the audience everything of you.
Right.
You can hold some of it back.
Right.
And that can sometimes be the surprise to the whole thing.
Right.
Think of like Bob Saget, right? Hilarious guy. But most of us knew him as Danny Tanner.
Right.
Good old American goofy dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Until you went and saw his comedy show and realized he's not that at all.
Danny Tanner at all.
Right. And so that surprise element's kind of neat. So I think you've landed on something with the persona being the goofy dad. But I think that's something the goofy dads with beards do, is they drink whiskey.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just a part of who you are, but you don't necessarily need to call it out until the right time comes when you can build it into a story, build it into something that relates with people, that maybe it's the silliness of how much people pay, or maybe it's the it's the silliness of some sort of built up status symbol that you have just because you have a certain bottle on your shelf,
right,
or whatever. But I think in comedy, it's really hard it's hard to find that gray area where you're not making fun of people that may be offended by that joke,
right?
But find the funny part of it. And
yeah.
So it's a little bit. I think you might be too new to it to be able to find the funny nuances within the comedy.
Yeah, and I think it's, to me, like, I mean, you see all these things. It's such a... And whiskey is just taken off, first of all. Like, I don't know. Apparently, it's... Everybody's all about it.
Raisins.
Just...
Caramel and raisins.
Caramel and raisins now? Now, for those of you just listening and not watching, we're not just saying random flavors. We're actually talking about the whiskey that we're drinking. He doesn't have fruit Tourette's. He is not just saying raisins. Can you imagine if you had Tourette's, but like you didn't say swear words, you just said random fruits and vegetables?
That would be
Broccoli!
really strange.
Carrots!
Squash.
Carrot, squash, rhubarb.
Rhubarb.
Why rhubarb?
What is the most offensive sounding fruit or vegetable? Kumquat.
I wouldn't say that's offensive. I'd say it's kind of intriguing. To be honest, I kind of liked it. I'm not going to lie.
You ever had a kumquat?
I think I have.
What's the taste? Does it taste like anything?
Kumquat.
Or is it kind of like an egg?
Tastes like chicken. Not going to lie. It tastes like chicken. Exactly like chicken.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Kale. If you say it with an accent, any vegetable or fruit can sound offensive.
Which accent?
Kale!
Well, I mean, yeah, if you scream anything like a Scottish grandmother, it's going to sound...
I was going for German Third Reich, not Scottish grandmother.
Kale.
What kind of crazy Scottish grandmother have you?
Look, they're all European. Who knows?
That's true. Yeah.
Who knows?
They're that way.
Yeah.
That way.
Our ancestors.
Yeah. I'm from the land of Israel, so.
That's right. You're Jewish.
I missed out on my... I have some... That's another... We need to talk about... We need to do the grandma jokes next time. We have to do the grandma jokes, because that is one that... I have my grandma that was Jewish.
Yeah.
And I have my grandma that was English.
Yes.
Stratford-on-Avon. Like, literally, they're both, like, textbook. Like, English grandma, Stratford-on-Avon, Shakespeare Town, proper British, war bride, all that. Other grandma, Jewish, lived in Vegas, realtor, wore a leopard print, took Elton John to a AA meeting, was a sponsor apparently in Chicago one time. I don't know. It was weird. That I need to build them out more.
Yeah.
English grandma, you've a Janae Doubtfire, dear. Like, basically who she was.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yes.
I can't wait to dig into that a little bit more.
That'll be good next time.
I think that would be great next time.
All right.
I can't wait to do it.
I like it.
All right, Matt. Well, it was good seeing you.
You too. Whiskey Bits.
Whiskey Bits. Next time on Whiskey Bits. What do you notice about the blue label?
Oh.
The double L.
Because there's a W. So a W, then there's two L's. Doubles.
Yeah, that's exactly what
That's right.
Of course. That's exactly what we're
So they're just
for.
like, hey, we're from Weller. But they're not Weller.
I was going to say, is there any
Buffalo
relationship
Trace,
to Weller?
So Buffalo Trace is, and Weller Weller comes from Buffalo Trace.
There you go.
So they're just like an ode to Weller, but it's not an ode to their actual distillery.
Master Distiller from Traveler is the same one as Buffalo Trace.
Oh, yes.
So
We're gonna.
they make this,
Hey guys, we haven't even started drinking yet.
and they make this.
Well,
The same guy makes them both.
I know, but wouldn't it make more sense instead of Traveler to have
Here,
like...
take the glass.
Yeah, it wasn't going to make sense anyways.
Hey, thanks for sticking around. That's it for this episode of Whiskey Bits. But if you enjoyed yourself, please like, share, and subscribe on your favorite platform.